Welcome back, everyone. I am excited today to bring you Michelle Walters. She is an imagination advocate, a marketing coach, a clinical hypnotherapist, and speaker who helps organizations and individuals with their message, mindset, and momentum. She's also an award winning and best selling author of An Alignment of Spirit, Finding Work You Love, and The ABCs of Conscious Leadership. Welcome, Michelle. So happy to have you here today.
Thank you, Dr. Denise. I'm delighted to be here.
Excellent. So I talked a bit about you in your bio, but tell us a little bit more about you, what you do, and who you serve.
Absolutely. So I am a longtime digital marketer. Before I got into the space of working in clinical hypnotherapy, that's what I did. And then just before the pandemic, I wrote a novel about a hypnotherapist. And I thought, oh my God, this sounds like the coolest job ever. And so I went to hypnotherapy school on the weekends and completed the certification for that. And then during the pandemic, everything kind of changed. And so it seemed like a good time to be like, if I'm ever going to do something new, like this is the breakthrough moment.
Yes.
And so I changed. I really sort of flip flopped the amount of time I put into different activities as opposed to spending most of my time doing digital marketing. I spend most of my time doing hypnosis work, promoting hypnosis work, and now going into AI with hypnosis work. I still do a little bit of work in marketing and I love it. People sometimes go, why these two? And I'm like, they're kind of the same. They're all about being creative and persuasive. It's just one uses a lot of fancy schmancy digital tools, and one is a little bit more personal and you ask for it as opposed to just getting it. But that's a little bit of how I got into this biz.
I think so many people during the pandemic, everybody was pivoting, everybody was experiencing something new. What I find really interesting is that there's now going to be this whole generation that's behind us that didn't go through that doesn't understand. The whole world paused for a while and everybody had this crisis of identity and changing who we were. That's great that you emerge from it with this.
I just decided, hey, this is the time. If you're going to change the way the arrow is pointing, go somewhere else. And that's what I've done. And some of it has been natural and some of it has been really hard, but it has been rewarding.
And so who are you working with? Who's your ideal client?
So I have two different clients, I would say, at the moment. My individual client for hypnosis work tends to be more women than men, although I do have a decent slice of fellows who come to see me.
Mhm.
And they are people usually, I'd say between 30 and 60, who are looking to change a thought pattern. There's a thought pattern that is not working for that, and they need, and or a behavior pattern that they need some help getting past. So I have clients who come to me to quit smoking. I have clients who come to me to help be supportive in their weight loss journey. I have clients who come to me for strange phobias, like getting on airplanes or fear of bumblebees.
Mhm.
I have clients who come to me for little habits they don't want to do anymore. Like I had this woman last year who like had this weird grimacing thing that she would do that popped up out of nowhere. I have a new client and I've had a couple clients in the past for hair pulling where they get stressed out and pull their hair. And I love working with my individual clients. I really get to know people at a deeper level and explore what is the thought in their head or thoughts or experiences that they have survived that needs to be cleared and relinquished and dropped and changed and improved. And so at the end of the process, I see people who, I mean, one of my past clients had been pulling her hair for 50 years,
Oh,
for 50 years. And I helped her to stop. It's just a tremendous feeling to be able to help somebody who's really locked in a place they don't want to be to get out of it.
I appreciate you sharing that the various transformations that you have helped people accomplish. Have you found, as we all tend to do in business, have you found that there's some struggles that you encountered as a business owner? And if so, how'd you overcome that?
Okay. Well, one I think you will totally get is the difference between running a business when you are part of a marketing team with a lot of people in corporate, and then you come down to it being all you and you got to do it independently. And in my case, I worked in digital marketing for over 20 years. I built websites before there were tools to build websites, you know? And so, but figuring out how to choose the right tools, because it's a completely different tool set at a solopreneur level,
Right.
and how to spend my time on them and how much to put into sales and colleague development and collaborations and all these things that were very, very different when I worked at Schwab or Nestle or Clorox, PG&E. Like, it's a very different ballgame. And so I would say that's been one of the biggest challenges for me was it was like, I know theoretically what to do, but the actual how to do it and the emphasis is very different.
And so now that you have made that transition and you're mastering it as a solopreneur, what strategies do you use in your business to bring in those clients, to convert those leads into new clients and to serve those clients?
I use a variety of tools and techniques. I consider my website the hub for my business and try and make sure that it is complete and full and getting updated and all the good stuff. I do webinars on a monthly basis to reconnect with past clients, to receive referrals, to support my community, that kind of a thing. The webinars has definitely been an important tool and technique. I speak. I love to speak. If anybody here thinks I'd be a good speaker for your group, I would love to have a chat because speaking has been such a great way to connect with people. I reflected on my results, and this odd name in one of my networking groups showed up as one of my biggest referrals. And I was like, huh, why is this guy the mortgage broker? How did I get so many referrals from the mortgage broker? Oh, yeah, he set up that speaking opportunity, right? And so one thing leads to another. I have gone out and done in person events. I've tried a few other things, but really the webinars, referrals, and speaking are at the top of my list in terms of where I get my leads right now. And I get a certain amount just from the internet, from Google and that kind of thing.
You mentioned the webinars. A lot of people say, well, I use webinars because I'm trying to sell X, but you're using them for several different reasons. It's a way to serve your community. It's a way to educate people. It's a way to get referrals. And I think that's so important for people to recognize it's not just a lead generator that leads to sales, but it can serve several different purposes.
And I love it that way. I think over the summer, I do a thing called Nourish and Flourish, which is really online group hypnosis. And I do it once a month. And I happened to have a session over the summer where I looked at the faces who were there in my Zoom room and I knew everybody there. And on the one hand, I was like, oh, darn, no new prospects today.
Mhm.
But on the other hand, it was like, oh, I get to see her, and it's nice to reconnect. And it provides this sort of through line while at the same time being a place where somebody could say, oh, I have this great person. Why don't you just come with me on Friday to listen to her? In hypnotherapy, there's a lot of people, there's a lot of myths about hypnotherapy. There's a lot of people who are very hesitant, or I don't know, they seem to think I'm going to tell them to give me the password to their bank account and that's going to work. But it doesn't, right? And by coming to my webinar, they're able to see for themselves and realize, oh, this isn't weird or funky or paranormal or scary. Like it's really beneficial, but not frightening in any way.
Right. So you have the webinars, and obviously there's elements of the webinar that is automated. What else do you automate in your business?
So I automate my calendar. That's huge. I have a podcast. My podcast is called Mind Power Meets Mystic, and I have a few automations that run to onboard people who are going to be on, to collect their information, to follow up with the promotional materials. Those are built-in automations. A lot of the podcast publishing process, I have not figured out how to automate, but I think there are opportunities for that. I have now a little automation running on my webinars that I get the leads from other sources immediately, which seems to help in terms of it's not like they hear from me the day of. They've already heard from me closer to the time when they signed up kind of
That's
thing.
good. Mhm.
So those are pretty much the automations I have running there right now. Unless you want to talk about the automations in my app. When I mentioned I had two audiences, one audience is the audience that I work with individually, and the other audience is the one that I'm now serving through my app because
Yeah, please say
I,
more about that.
yeah, I decided that the AI train was coming and I could jump on it or I could be run over. And I thought of this clever little way to create self hypnosis recordings for people that is done with a web app. Someday I may port it to phones, but right now it's a web app and it's called makemyhypno.com. And on makemyhypno.com, you can go there and say, I would like a self hypnosis recording for focus or anxiety or sleep or something like that.
Mhm.
There's 18 things. Does it work for everything? No, but it works for 18 things. And it uses technology and the magic that is available to make about a 16-minute self-hypnosis recording for you in my voice in 5 minutes. And so there's a number of automations, of course, that run to make something like that happen in 5 minutes because I couldn't make it myself in 5 minutes. It is a fantastic product for someone who is looking for a way to have something that's custom to her or to him,
Mhm.
and they can get it really fast. It gets emailed to the client, so the client can actually save it to his or her phone or computer. And I think part of the reason why I felt this would be valuable is that me and many other hypnotherapists really encourage people to have recordings and listen to recordings over and over again because the brain likes that repetition.
Mhm.
And so here's a way to have a recording that's distinct for you. So if you like to imagine being on a beach, you can put in that you want to be on a rocky beach versus somebody who wants to imagine being on the top of a mountain. They can imagine being on the top of the mountain.
Right.
And there's some ways to throw some customizations in there too. So it's exciting. I don't know that everybody in the hypnotherapy world is going to love me for this, but
It
you
sounds
know,
exciting.
needed to try it. I think it's better than listening to something that's been pre-recorded and sold off the shelf
Right.
because it is made to individual specifications as opposed to, hey, you download this YouTube thing and it's great, but maybe you like the rocky beach and not the mountains, and you got mountains and that's what you got.
Right. Now give domain one more time. The link.
It's called makemyhypno.com. I'll spell it just in case people can't
Please
spell
do.
hypno. makemyhypno.com.
Perfect. And we'll put it in the show notes as well so people can find it there later. So, based on your area of expertise, whichever audience you want to speak to, could you share 3 tips that would benefit our listeners?
Absolutely. I'm going to talk about tips that I think are really pertinent to both hypnotherapy as well as just good life. My first tip is well, it's funny. The first word that came to mind was automate your self talk. If you're going to automate your talk, you want to automate it to the positive channel. When your self talk is negative, you just wind up getting more and more depressed and deeper in your hole, and it gets harder and harder to accomplish things. And so I think it's really important for people to observe their self talk.
Mhm.
And if it's not positive, figure out what do you need to do to make it neutral or positive because you won't get far if you're just always defeating yourself.
So, when you say automate it, what do you mean by that?
What I mean by that is funny that I would think of that word. It would pop in my head here. But create a process in your own head. I don't mean a technology process,
Mhm.
but I mean a headspace process where you are trying to keep that self talk in a neutral or positive way. And I don't mean never criticize yourself. That's okay. But if you spend too much time being like, oh, I was late here and I spilled the milk and I da 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 all the time, you don't get anywhere. You want to have some process, some mental process, really, for noticing and encouraging yourself to be positive.
Yeah. So there's a level of self-awareness there that you're paying attention to those conversations and catching yourself when you say that, "Oh, I'm so stupid," and catching yourself and recognizing in that moment, "No, I need to switch. I need to reprogram this," as a way of retraining your brain. Would you agree?
Yes. And it's funny because I can't remember what book it was in. And this came out way before this cancel culture thing came up a few years ago. But there's like some book, I don't know, probably written in the early 1900s, where the advice was when you see yourself saying mean things to yourself, think the word cancel instead. And the intention of this practice was you're not adding or subtracting any energy from it. You're just stopping it, right?
Yes.
So it's not like, oh, I shouldn't have been thinking negative things about myself. You just think, cancel, just let that go, boom, let it go,
Mhm.
and then move on.
Great. And what's your second tip?
My second tip is not going to sound like rocket science, but it is important. And that is that you need to exercise, you need to eat well, and you need to sleep. And if these things are not happening, maybe you need a little self hypnosis to see if you could touch them up a bit. They're fundamental and foundational. And even though it sounds completely off track, your hypnotherapist is going to ask you, do you exercise? Do you eat well? Do you sleep well? But it's one of the first questions I bring up with my clients because when there are problems or deficiencies in how someone is taking care of themselves, then we got to make sure we're working on those too.
That goes back to Maslow's hierarchy, those basic physiological safety needs and the things that we know that we should be doing. So, like you said, it's not rocket science, but that doesn't mean that we're doing it. We know what we should eat or should not eat, or that we should be exercising and that we should get enough sleep and that we should be drinking water and all the things.
Yeah.
But are we? So that's good to just have that reminder.
It's made to check in with people, make sure they're taking care of themselves. And I mean, I would say 90% of the people who come to see me are like, yeah, yeah, I got that covered. But every now and again, somebody will be like, oh, yeah, actually, I've been sleeping really poorly.
Mhm.
Okay, we got to work on that. It's funny about sleep, though. A lot of times clients come to see me for something else, and then they tell me, oh, my sleep got so much better when we started working together. I think it's because hypnosis is it's like being right on the edge of being awake and asleep. And so it's almost like you're practicing going to sleep every time you do this. And I think that's part of what makes it easier for people to fall and stay asleep.
And your third tip?
My third tip is repetition. Practice what you want to make true. And that's part of why I came up with Make My Hypno. That's part of why I make recordings for clients. But it is practice that makes perfect. And not that you necessarily have to be perfect, but if you're off base about something, chances are you're not going to get rid of a pattern by one affirmation or one session kind of thing.
Mhm.
You need a little bit of practice and repetition to ensure that something is going in the right direction and going to stick. And recordings can help with that. Stringing habits together can help with that. Like, I'm not so good now, but for a long time, I was doing my squats every time I brush my teeth. Hooking things together can help, right? But repetition is really how we learn, and it's how we change the subconscious mind.
So don't beat yourself up because you tried it one time. And
Right. Right. I've had people come and I'll give them a recording and I'll be like, well, did you try the recording? Well, I sort of listened to part of it and then something happened. Well, you can't plan to see results from what you don't put energy into. So,
yeah. And give yourself grace for, no, it didn't work out yesterday. It's okay. Forgive yourself and move on. But now step up and do the thing that you said that you committed that you want to do. Yeah.
right, stick with it. Stick with it maybe longer than an afternoon.
All great tips. Thank you very much. Now, here at the Automated Coach podcast, our listeners are known as action takers. So, what is one action that you would encourage our listeners to take?
I would say be thankful. It's one of the most obvious things. People talk about it all the time. But when you are feeling down, one of the quickest ways to get out of your hole is to just look around and find something. I like to encourage people to find something in their physical environment that they can be thankful for.
Mm.
Did you just receive a check? Be thankful. Do you have glasses that improve your vision?
Right.
You can be thankful. We get caught up in all the noise and overwhelm and craziness. The world is absolutely cuckoo bananas right now in ways most of us have never seen before.
Right.
But when you really try and just take the moment to be like, wait, my computer is working today. I got in a walk and saw the sunrise. Whatever you got, you can come up with something. And so that's my little tip. If you're feeling, well, especially I think coaches, coaches have a lot on their minds
Right.
and they try and do a lot of things. And sometimes you got to slow down and be grateful for what you got before you can figure out what's the next thing you want to do.
And love that sort of almost a tip within a tip of not just be thankful, but find something in your immediate physical environment to be thankful for. Because I think sometimes we get so caught up in it has to be some ethereal,
No,
peace.
no,
And
no, no, no.
but if
I
it's
have
like,
a
no,
little
no, no,
card here with some
sticks
pink.
that I keep close by.
Yeah, exactly. I have a little card here with some pink hearts. I can be thankful that somebody sent this to me. I don't know
Right.
where I got it, but it's kind of cute. And you just don't overthink it. I won't say it's true of all my clients, but it's true of a certain stripe of them. And I think it's certain stripe of a lot of people is that people get into overthink. And overthink is generally not helpful.
You're simplifying the process for them by giving them a very easy, simple thing for them to focus on. I think
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
You got to make it simple enough for people to do. Otherwise, they don't do it.
right.
Learned that when I was working in the coaching area. I was like, wait, I need to make this really easy. Like, click one. Well, I tried to automate it, but it got hard to automate. So now when I send people their recording, like I put it in an email and send it to them. But I do it that way in part because when they receive it, all they have to do is push one button. People
Very
like pushing one button. They
Right.
don't like having to do anything more than that.
true. Very true. Well, Michelle, thank you so much for taking the time to join me here on an Automated Coach podcast. I know that our listeners are going to want to follow up with you. They're going to want to check out your app. They're going to want to follow up with you in general. So, how can our listeners follow up with you online?
Yeah. So I've already given the URL for my app. If you're interested in the app, you can go directly there. My website for my business, when I work with people individually and for companies and that kind of thing, is michellewalters.net. And on michellewalters.net, you'll find out about my books and about the podcast and about my personal services and all that kind of stuff. So you can find, and my social medias are all there too. So the easiest place to go, michellewalters.net, spelled MICHELLEWALTERS.
Perfect. I was just about to ask you to spell it. Thank you. Thank you very much. Again, Michelle, thank you. And thank you to our listeners for joining us on another episode of the Automated Coach podcast. And please do tune in again next time and join us for our next guest. Thank you.